Morning all, let's see what's on the BBC homepage today, shall we? Arrest as 2 killed in quadruple London stabbing. Boring. That's boring. It's called the news. Should be new stuff. This happens every day in the swamp, the festering shit pit that we know as the capital city of the UK. So that's not news. I don't want to be told about boring stuff that happens all the time. Live, UK will recognise Palestinian state in September. Boring. We knew they were going to do that. If they're willing to turn their back on 30 years of systemic torture, abuse and occasional murder of children, as long as these sick activities being perpetuated by the regulars at Allen's snack bar that the government's got a soft spot for, well, of course they'll recognise the state of Palestine. They'll move every single Palestinian into your back garden if they get the chance. So this isn't news. This is just what they always do. Police officers also abuse Rotherham victims. Here's something good. I've heard about, hundreds of thousands of fellas from places like Pakistan and Bangladesh and Morocco doing these things. I've never heard about a copper getting involved. Interesting. I'll tell you what else is interesting about it, and we'll get to it at the very, very, very bottom of the story, because the BBC don't really want to tell you, and they know that most people don't read past the first 3 paragraphs. So it takes them a long time to get to the meat of this story, but they do at the very bottom. And before I tell you, I just want to ask you a question. See if you get it right. Do you think the copper that's named in this story as having abused the abuse victims, do you think he's more likely to be called Angus or Ali? Place your bets now, folks. Right, strangely, the BBC actually told you the guy's name. I didn't see that coming. Definitely didn't see that coming. It takes them a while to get there, but they manage it in the end, and obviously we all know the answer, don't we? We don't even need... Shall we just go? Do you want me to read it? It seems a bit pointless. It's a foregone conclusion. But what else are we going to do today? I mean, there's no point reading about all the stabbings and the murders in Sadiq Khan's London. So, what the hell? I'll read it, out of morbid curiosity. So, turns out the Rozzers were poking them as well. When you live in a sick society that doesn't enforce the law, if the people committing the horrific acts against children happen to look a certain way, of course the Rozzers are poking them, because everybody knows they can get away with it. So why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? They probably joined the police on purpose. Sort of like the Vatican appears to have a tractor beam. It's fired directly into the houses of people that have a propensity for diddling. So too do ethnically heavy police stations. Yeah, they've got a nonce beam, a giant magnet that sucks them in, uniforms them and sends them out, prowling the streets looking for 12-year-olds that can belt feed booze and drugs. Warning, this story contains descriptions of sexual Oh, well, what do you mean, warning? The jig is up. We know what's been going on, BBC. It's sort of like how you covered up for Jimmy Savile for 40 years, except worse, because at least he wasn't actually killing any of them. So don't worry, anyone who reads your contemptible, lamentable website, projected from that evil organisation known as Broadcasting House, that frankly, for the good of society, should be bulldozed, tarmacked over, replaced with a multi-storey car park, and then we can deny it ever existed. So just maybe our great-great-great-great-grandchildren can get over the shame that the BBC ever existed at all. Anyway, sorry, went off on a tangent. 5 women who were exploited by grooming gangs in Rotherham say they were also abused by the police in the town. Ha! Of course they were. Of course they were. Because the coppers in the town aren't usually called Alan and Roger and Michael. No, they've got names with lots of Z's and I's in them, like the alphabet vomited. They'll get to it eventually, trust me, I've read this. One woman says she was surprise sexed from the age of 12 by a serving South Yorkshire policeman in the back of a police car, and he would threaten to hand her back to the gang if she didn't comply. Sounds like a nice fella. In a world where you're being abused so much, being diddled by a copper was a lot easier than multiple ones, and I think he knew that. At least 1,400 girls in Rotherham were abused. That's only a couple of thousand. Not that bad, is it? Couple of thousand, while the government helped. The police officers were conker deep in all the victims as well. The MPs and the judges and the politicians, they didn't do anything about it. It's not that big of a deal. Let's talk about you writing tweets on the internet that are a bit rude. Forget about these trifling incidents of endemic state corruption and the torture of children. Didn't you make a sarcastic quip last week? I think you better hand yourself into the authorities, old chap. Blah, 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 mainly Puma trackies. Yeah, well, everyone knows that. None of this is news. Why am I even reading it? A new criminal investigation into the involvement of police is now being led by the South Yorkshire Police's major crime unit. Okay, so blokes from South Yorkshire Police were forcing 12-year-old girls to nosh them off in the back of the police cars. So South Yorkshire Police are looking into the whole thing. Brilliant. But are they all looking for a chew off an underage girl as well, are they? See if they can horse one into her in the cells. Sorry, questioning her. Professor Alexis J, who led the independent inquiry into abuse, has told the BBC she's shocked that the SYP is investigating its own officers. Yeah, weird that, innit? In response, the SYP Assistant Chief Constable said, "Oh, we know how hard it is to be a victim who's been so badly let down and to put their faith into the South Yorkshire Police." Faith. Yeah, faith's the root cause of this problem, isn't it? I.e., if you don't share their faith, they're happy to hand you over to a gang of 25 blokes who will roger you more than a copper's radio, and then when they've finished, the said copper comes to get his radio back, and then he forces you to give him an oil change as well. This is a crazy state of affairs. Is there a nation more contemptible than the United Kingdom at this point? They haven't had scandals like this anywhere else in the world as far as I'm concerned. Does the government and the local police and all the MPs and the politicians and the judges and the barristers and the lawyers, do they all join in with the kiddie fiddlers in France and Spain and America? Because I don't think they do. No, I think every single one of us that has ever paid a single penny in income tax in the UK has basically been paying people to fiddle kids. So, frankly, every British taxpayer, we should all hand ourselves in. We all deserve a couple of years in the nick, don't we? Because we paid for this. He was on the payroll when he was buggering little girls in the back of his police car. And we were paying his wages. I've changed my mind. Lock me up. Lock me up. I deserve it. The 30 witness accounts seen by the BBC detail years of abuse from serving police officers from the mid-90s to the early 2000s. Unbelievable. And Gordon Brown knew about it. This went right to the Prime Minister. And he sent out a circular saying, don't do anything about it. These 12-year-old girls are making informed consent. Yeah, can you imagine that? When you're 15, you can't make informed consent to gamble or drink or smoke. But you can give your informed consent to skiing two coppers in the back of the meat wagon. Yeah, of course you can. Makes loads of sense. Most of the victims were in the teens, but some were as young as 11. One woman said as a child she'd hear police officers rattling children in exchange for drugs and money. Another lass says as a child she saw a police officer supplying Class A drugs to a grooming gang. And 3 women described being beaten up by officers as children in a police cell. This should be a film. This should be... I watched that Bad Cop with Harvey Keitel. You remember that one? Where he's a bent copper and he forces a prosy to give him a gobble in the back of the police van. This is way worse than anything Hollywood's ever made. This is like a cross between Reservoir Dogs and a snuff movie. This is unbelievable. And heads aren't rolling. No. You know what the government's talking about? The Green New Deal. Yeah, cheers. One of the women, Willow, not a real name, says she was sexually abused by hundreds of men over 5 years, and it started when she was 11 years old. Yeah, well, you know, we've all been round the block a bit when we're 11, love. Yeah, of course we have. Can't buy scratch cards, but you can get a train ran on you by 20 Bangladeshis. Of course you can. Makes loads of sense. She said, I would rather be diddled once or give one man the obvious than to be taken somewhere where I know it'd be 15 or 20 guys, one after the other. It was just easier. She also got pressured into an illegal... All right, this is just a litany of... It's stomach turning, to be honest. I've got a strong stomach, me. I'm not too concerned about balking, but I am concerned in getting so angry about it. I go to my local police station and reenact the scene from The Terminator. So I better stop reading it. It's unbelievable, isn't it? I watched that film when I was about 10 with my dad, where he puts on his leather jacket, smashes through the front desk in his car, and then goes on a rampage. And I remember as a kid, it was quite horrifying. I was like, oh my God, those poor police officers. Now I'd get the popcorn out. He's officially the good guy in that film. He's more heroic than Batman, Superman and Spider-Man. Yes, the evil killer cyborg from the future was apparently doing me a solid. Love that. I'll have to go back and re-watch it. It totally changes the meaning of the film. Anyway, I'll cut to the chase because there's all the waffle. You know what the BBC's like? They'll tell you about the wallpaper in the station. Oh, I was diddled by a copper. The couch was pink. The wallpaper was a unique hue. And let me tell you about the leafy shires that surround the police station. There's a very peculiar type of conifer there. Get to the point, BBC. Give me some names. Give me some names. Blah, 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 vile, diddling, rogering, bent coppers, bent judges, bent lawyers, bent politicians. Blah. Here we are. Officer named. We can't see the names of the former SYP officers referred to in the accounts because the women's accounts have been redacted. Of course they have. But the BBC understands that one alleged victim has named PC. There we go. He was in on it. Right, I can't say a name like that. There's no way you can get away with saying that. No, it's a hate crime if you read names out on the internet. We'll just call him, we'll redact the name and we'll call him, that one there, the big blue bold letters on the screen. We'll just call him Harry Allen. It was Harry Allen. Hotel Alpha carried out some of these attacks. Yeah. What did you do that for, Harry? What did a red-blooded Englishman like Harry do a thing like that for? The first time he literally said, you do it for the other officers, you're gonna do it for me. Nice fella. Oh, here we are, and the only reason they'll tell you that is because he's brown bread. PC Harry is brown as... That's the only reason... So basically, of all these tens of thousands of swarthy men that are doing it, the only ones they'll name are the ones that are already dead. Think of that. And I'm assuming, because we have quite decent life expectancy these days, 99.99% of the ones who did it aren't dead, so they're all fitting well, but you can't know their names. Yeah. So justice will never, ever be served. And there he is. So, to sum up, on today, the day 1 year on from one of the most monstrous terrorist attack ever on British soil, where a foreign killer purposely butchered 3 children, right? Something that almost they don't do it anywhere. The IRA didn't do it. Boko Haram don't do it. They don't purposely knife 8-year-old girls. But this fella did, because he was a regular at Allen's snack bar, just like this gentleman you see before you. The only one named because he's the only one who karma took care of. Yeah, so you've got to rely on Lady Luck, karma, some sort of spiritual being to take the trash out. Because the government, the politicians, the judges, the lawyers, and the left-wing activists defend them and cover for them while sacrificing them. Okay? If you're not angry, if your blood's not boiling, if your piss isn't boiling in the bladder, if you aren't gripped by a cold fury that threatens to burn your bones to ash, you are not paying attention. All right? Don't attend a vigil. Don't play Imagine on a piano. Read that story. I'll link it in the description, and let cold fury fuel your muscles. The Prime Minister, the front bench, everyone in the Houses of Commons and Lords, the politicians, the judges, the coppers, they're in on it. They help them. They assist the people that slaughter and diddle your children. And when you complain about it too loudly, like Lucy Connolly, they send you to prison. That's where we're at. Get angry. All right? Nice to return to my natural habitat after yesterday's foray into minutiae, into pleasant, somewhat silly commentary on sports events. This is what we should be talking about. And if you haven't got a rage boner, I suggest you slap yourself around a little bit. But that's just what I think. If you think attending goat yoga, drinking green tea, and talking about wind turbines is a much better prospect, please let me know in the comments. Yeah, because the ramblings of madmen always delight me. Thanks for tuning in. See you all tomorrow. Toodle pip. Cheers.